Thank you for joining me, Glenna Rashipura, on NMH at 1, where we highlight the news making waves in Namibia and beyond, ranging from current affairs, community stories, sports, and economic news. Coming up in this broadcast, close to $190,000 Namibian for members of parliament spouses behavior training. Former RDP election chief sues ex-intelligence boss over $7 million Namibian. Seal meat has health benefits, experts say. We get into these stories on our broadcast NMH at 1. Getting into our midday news update, a truck carrying a load of cement hit a Toyota bakkie this morning at Oluyeshanja village in the Omusati region. According to one of the occupants in the bakkie, they were turning towards the right side of the road while the truck tried to overtake. The truck hit the bakkie on the driver's door. No injuries were reported and police are at the scene, and so Amwele reports. Visual News highlights local stories from across Namibia. We get into this after the break.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
Now getting into our visual news, the Anti-Corruption Commission handed a corruption risk assessment report to the Namibia Revenue Agency yesterday at Pelican Hotel in Walvis Bay. The corruption risk assessment report provides valuable insights into potential vulnerabilities and corruption risk within our organization, according to NAMRA's Integrity Awareness and Investigation Specialist, Javieti Shizumbulio. The report focused mostly on domestic taxes and identified areas which need strict control measures in terms of supervision and monitoring. Nikano Nangolo reports.
It is a pleasure and honor to stand here on behalf of NAMRA to witness the handover of the Corruption Risk Assessment Report. NAMRA would like to appreciate the effort that the anti-corruption has been making in fighting corruption in the country. We would like to again commend the Anti-Corruption Commission for the work they are doing, which is visible today. The collaboration between NAMRA and Anti-Corruption Commission came a long way. It did not just start today, but it started way back in 2016, with Ministry of Finance being the first institution to pilot test the corruption risk assessment tool. This collaboration will be strengthened to enhance good governance, which is the fundamental principle of transparency and accountability. Ladies and gentlemen, NAMRA's mandate is to maximize the collection of taxes and revenue. Therefore, the Domestic Taxes Department is at the core implementation of such mandate. The report we are receiving today focused mostly on domestic taxes, and it informed us about the area which needs strict control measure in terms of supervision and monitoring. Hence, bribery is one of the common identified risks in the report. We want to assure you that Internal Affairs Department will work closely with the Integrity Committee at the regional level to enforce the implementation of the mitigation plan, to ensure that corruption has no place in this agency, which is NAMRA.
Our newspaper review follows after the break.
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the 15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune into Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin.
Let's take a look at our daily newspapers, starting off with the Namibian Sun's front page. A decision to allow Menzies Aviation to continue providing ground handling services at the Hosea Kutako International Airport, despite a Supreme Court ruling stating otherwise, is tantamount to condoning lawlessness in the country. Paragon Investment Holdings Director Desmond Amuniela said. He was speaking at a press briefing yesterday after the High Court gave Menzies 30 days to stop its operations. He expressed great frustration with the delays and alleged entitlement mentality of Menzies, adding that Paragon lost millions in potential revenue as the dispute dragged on. If Menzies does not leave, that is not an option, because if they continue to be in the airport after this, that will make a mockery of the law. Now on page 3, if domestic marine industry players had their way, Namibians would have seal meat on their dinner plates in no time. This will not only help to control the growing seal population, but could also provide a number of health benefits, they said. These calls come at a time when fishing industry players are lamenting the growing number of seals within the country's rich fishing grounds, saying the seals are hindering their fishing operations. Fisheries biologist Lesine Kaliwenya has floated the idea of developing seal meat into a delicacy as it is rich in omega-3. Despite international pressure to halt seal culling, Kaliwenya believes seal meat could be a local delicacy in Namibia. On Republicans' front page, if urgent action is not taken, Namibia and South Africa will face the loss of the African penguin, the only type of penguin on the continent. According to a report by the South African Ministry of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, this type of penguin will be extinct by 2035 if no action is taken. In 2015, there were 5,800 breeding pairs of this species in Namibia, but this year there are no more than 4,000 breeding pairs left, and experts believe this is an optimistic number. Their numbers are declining. Their numbers have been declining since about the 1950s, when formal counts began, so their population numbers probably started declining long before that. They then stabilized in the early 2000s and have declined again in the last few years. They're teetering on the brink of extinction, said seabird expert Jessica Kemper. Now, a woman who was found guilty a year ago, in the Oshakati High Court of killing her newborn son in March 2020 has been sentenced to an effective 22 years in prison on Friday. Judge Duarte Keslau said Hilda Tsekupe Lita was convicted on charges of murder and attempting to defeat the course of justice. Keslau sentenced Lita to 22 years behind bars, of which 3 were suspended for 5 years on condition that the accused is not convicted of murder or culpable homicide committed during the period of suspension. On count 2 for attempting to defeat or obstruct the course of justice, Lita was sentenced to 12 months imprisonment. Keslau ordered that the sentence imposed on count 2 be served concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Now, on its front page, the Allgemeine Zeitung today leads with the new Recon Africa Managing Director, who will be granted initial stock options, which appear to be in line with the Canadian exploration company's compensation model. In its annual report, the company explains existing options to directors and senior management in general. Based on the current share price, an immediate redemption seems rather unlikely. Now, on page 2, the Allgemeine Zeitung is attending to the partnership between Namibia and Japan, which signed several bilateral agreements to strengthen investment and trade between the two countries. The Japanese government is willing to invest a whopping $1.5 billion in mining activities in Namibia. With Alwindo, who discussed the basic concept for expanding future cooperation in mining, We want to exchange information and carry out technology cooperations, the Japanese minister said. Now we continue with our newspaper review after the break.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Now getting right back into our newspaper review, starting off with the Namibian front page. Former Rally for Democracy and Progress Election Director John Gishekwa is suing former Namibian Central Intelligence Service Director General Philemon Malema over a failed $7 million farming business deal. The two men have been friends for over 54 years and they were both trained as pastors at the same institution. However, their friendship is now on the rocks after Gishekwa accused Malema of failing to keep his word. Gishekwa sued Malema, who was the intelligence boss from 2015 to 2020 and September 2022. The case is ongoing. Gishekwa alleges that he entered into a verbal partnership agreement with Malema in 2007 to establish a farming business. Now, according to the paper's page 3, a man who killed his aunt in the Kavango region by kicking her and whipping her with a donkey halter has been sentenced to a prison term of 18 years after he was found guilty of murder during a session of the High Court at Rundu. Judge President Petrus Damasep sentenced Kanjimi Haingura, who killed his aunt at Ngiko, a village in the Kavango West region, on the 12th of June 2020 to 18 years imprisonment at the end of his trial on Tuesday. Beheta Nipembe died of internal injuries she sustained when she was assaulted. Her liver was ruptured as a result of the assault. Now, the New Era's lead story highlights the National Council, which is set to splash out at least $189,000 million on the spouses of its members for a 5-day training on how to behave if a leaked internal memo seen by this report is anything to go by. Now, the figure New Era understands excluded transportation costs. Dated the 7th of August, the missive by Acting National Council Secretary Ephraim Jane is titled Members of Parliament's Spouses Workshop on Protocol and Etiquette. According to insiders, the council will spend at least $4,500 million to cater for the travel and subsistence allowance of each spouse. Now, rape and incest accused former National Council member Steve Biko Boyce has taken his fight to be released on bail to the High Court on grounds that he was denied a chance to present evidence. Now, Boyce cited that the Okahanja Magistrates Court prevented him from presenting certain evidence during his bail application in 2021. The former SWAPO lawmaker filed a notice of appeal on Friday after the Okahanja Magistrates Court refused to release him on bail, pending the finalization of his criminal case. Now onto Market Watch. Dimension Data Namibia Systems Integration and Information and Communication Technology Solutions provider and subsidiary of the Otlaver and List Group recently won the Fortinet SADC Top Performing Partner of the Year 2022 award. The annual award ceremony recognizes companies across the Southern African Development Community, with this year's event forming part of the Fortinet Security Day. Dimensions Data Namibia competed against 14 other countries in the SADC Top Performing Partner of the Year category, with the criteria for the award being based on the amount of revenue generated through the selling of Fortinet products and services for the financial year 2022. After the break, we get into your economic news. To stay with NMH at 1.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with the entertainment.
Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Let's get into our economic news. China last month suffered its biggest fall in exports for more than 3 years, official data showed on Tuesday, as the world's second largest economy is burdened by sluggish global demand and a domestic slowdown. The data will likely ramp up calls for leaders to do more to revive growth, having laid out a series of stimulus measures in recent weeks focusing on consumers and the troubled property sector. Sales of Chinese products to foreign markets sank 14.5% on year last month, a third consecutive drop according to the Customs Authority. The decline was bigger than expected and the heaviest since a 17.2% plunge in January to February 2022, when the economy came to a standstill in the early weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic. Apart from a brief rebound in March and April, exports have been in constant decline since October. The threat of recession in the United States and Europe, combined with a high inflation, has contributed to weakening international demand for Chinese products in recent months. Exports dived 12.4% on year in June. Shipments to the European Union in the first 7 months of the year came to $288.9 billion, down 2.6%, the Customs Authority said in a separate statement on Tuesday. Let's take a look at our economic indicators. The Namibian dollar trades against the British pound at 23.95, against the euro at 20.72, against the US dollar at 18.81, and $2 Namibian and 61 cents gets you 1 Chinese yuan. On the NSX, First Rand Namibia and Capricorn investment went down, with Capricorn investment going at 0.10%. Overall index closed at 0.01%, while the local index closed at 0.01%. On the commodities market, Brent crude oil went down at 0.26%, going for $87.35 per barrel. We return with news from Africa after this.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Let's get into the news from across the continent. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa on Wednesday told over 150,000 supporters in the capital of Harare they would be lost if they did not re-elect him at this month's tense polls. If Harare fails to vote ZANU-PF, you will be lost, the 80-year-old told strongmen said as he addressed a rally for his party ZANU-PF near the city center. He said at the party's first major rally in the capital that no one will stop them from ruling this country. Zimbabwe votes on August 23 to elect the president and legislature in what analysts expect to be a tense affair amid a crackdown on dissent and a disaffected population battling hyperinflation, poverty, and high unemployment. Suspicions of a possible election irregularities are rife in a nation that has been ruled by the same party since independence in 1980 and has a long history of disputed votes. Over 100 buses were organized to ferry people from different provinces for the occasion. Supporters were given lunch packs and party regalia at the venue. Some street vendors from the Mbare township in Harare told AFP they were forced to down their tools and told to board buses headed to the rally. Mnangagwa will, for a second time, face off against Nelson Chamisa, a 45-year-old lawyer and pastor who heads the country's largest opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change. After this short break, we get into your international news. Getting into our international news, the assassination of Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio shocked the South American country, where rising drug-related violence is a major concern for voters, leading some of his rivals to suspend campaigning. Villavicencio, a vocal critic of corruption and organized crime, was killed on Wednesday during an evening campaign event in northern Quito. A suspect in the crime later died of injuries sustained in a shootout, and 6 others have so far been arrested, the Attorney General's office said. 9 people, including a candidate for the legislature and 2 police officers, were injured, it added. President Guillermo Lasso said after midnight the crime was clearly an attempt to sabotage the election, but that voting would go ahead as planned on August 20th, albeit amid national state of emergency with the military mobilized to guarantee security. After the break, we get into your sports news. Do stay with NMH at 1. Let's take a look at our local sports news. Live Fighters Football Club has announced the appointment of Mark Muke as the club's football consultant. The move is aimed at improving the club's youth system and to broaden their horizon in other countries. Moving on to our next story, Windhoek FC coach Justice Sitabi says giving young players an opportunity in the futsal first division is something he admires. His first division team contains players who are younger than 20 or in their early 20s. Top-tier league outfit Julino Sporting Football Club on Monday retained the Kavango Super Cup Festival trophy after defeating Buffalo Horns Academy on penalties. The tournament, which commenced on the 2nd of August, took place at the Rundu Sports Stadium. We now get into your international sports news. Now, Mamelodi Sundowns maintained their perfect start to the DStv Premiership season with a 2-1 victory over Kaizer Chiefs at the Lucas Masterpiece Morbi Stadium on Wednesday afternoon. Colombia's run to the Women's World Cup quarterfinals may have taken many by surprise, but for coach Nelson Abdia, it is the product of years of building. The South Americans face European champions England on Saturday in Sydney, and no matter what happens, this has been a breakthrough moment for Colombian women's football. Now, 2-time major winner Justin Thomas, who played in the Nedbank Golf Challenge in South Africa from the 9th to the 12th of November, the organizers said on Wednesday. His presence at the Sun City Resort will mark a rare appearance by an American in an event popularly known as the African Major. Now, after the break, we get into the news highlights from today's broadcast.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraifa. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
You're watching NMH at 1, and if you have just joined us, here are the news highlights from today's broadcast. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa on Wednesday told over 150,000 supporters in the capital of Harare they would be lost if they did not re-elect him at this month's tense polls. Now, the assassination of Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio shocked the South American country, where rising drug-related violence is a major concern for voters, leading some of his rivals to suspend campaigning. Live Fighters Football Club has announced the appointment of Mark Muke as the club's football consultant. The move is aimed at improving the club's youth system